All right, well, May is Speech and Hearing Awareness Month. It's an important issue, especially with some studies showing hearing loss is even more prevalent than vision problems. More on that, we're joined by a pair of doctors, Dr. Ted Venema and Dr. Paul Mick. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. It's something, we'll all basically experience as we get older, but we never really talk about that much, and that's why it's important to talk about that. And as you mentioned, it's becoming a big problem.
Yeah, it's quite prevalent. Hearing loss is an invisible disability, and it tends to get swept under the rug. You can't see it, and so people believe what they see.
Right. And how do you know when there's a problem? When should you go try and seek some help?
Well, most patients don't complain about hearing loss. They usually complain about not being able to understand.
Right.
And so a lot of people will first notice a problem when they're having difficulty understanding what people are saying, especially when there's a difficult acoustic environment. For example, just a couple of days ago, a patient of mine said she could no longer hear her kids when they were talking in the back of the car because of the background noise.
Right, right. And go ahead.
Yeah, it's exactly what he said. It's the lack of understanding what someone said.
Right.
And it's usually, I call it the trouble with treble. People can't hear. It's called presbycusis. You lose hearing in the high pitches.
Yeah.
And in speech, you've got all these words like hat, fat, cat, bat, but what makes them different from each other is it's those high-pitched consonants.
Right, okay.
So when you can't hear the high-pitched consonants, you can't hear what someone said.
How many times in a year should we be getting a hearing check? Is it once a year? Is it a couple of times a year? Is it different for adults and children?
If you have some kind of a worry about it that you might have hearing loss, it's a good idea to go into a place and get your hearing checked, and it's usually free.
Yeah.
I know at many places it's free, Next Gen Hearing and Connect and all these places. But at any rate, get a hearing test done, and then keep a copy of that for yourself, and then let the audiologist or hearing instrument practitioner explain to you, and then get yourself checked every year.
And what about children?
Well, actually, in BC, in most places, there's universal hearing screening. So when kids are born, they get their hearing checked automatically.
Right.
Otherwise, if you're a parent and you're not sure if your child's speech is developing properly, or if you're worried that they may not be responding to you appropriately, then would be a good time to get their hearing checked.
Okay, so a couple of things we want to talk about. We'll talk about the foundation you want to talk about. Tell us about that, and then we're going to do something with the paper, right? Okay, let's do the foundation first.
So I'm the president of the Hear4U Foundation, and for many people with hearing loss, hearing aids are a great option to help them out. But unfortunately, hearing aids can be expensive, and there isn't any universal coverage to help pay for that.
Right.
So many low-income people simply go without.
Right.
So our foundation is aiming to change that, and we're doing so in two ways. We are informing people of subsidies and grants that may be available to them that they may not know about through our website, Hear4U.ca.
Okay.
For example, if you work or you're looking for a job or you volunteer, then you're eligible for a one-time government subsidy.
Oh, okay.
And then secondly, for people who aren't eligible for any of these subsidies or grants, we're organizing a hearing aid exchange program.
Oh, great idea.
Yeah, so if you have a used hearing aid that you don't need anymore, provided that it still works, and it's one of the kinds that sits behind the ear, you can drop it off at any one of our donation boxes across the province.
Okay.
And we have volunteer clinicians who will clean it, replace the part that goes into the ear, check to make sure that it still works. And if you're interested in receiving one of these aids at low cost or for free, then you can call one of the clinics, schedule an appointment, your hearing will be tested, and the aid will be fitted. Again, you can find out more about this program at Hear4U. That's HEAR4U.ca. Hear4U.ca.
Okay, great stuff. And that's 4 with the number, I'm guessing.
That's right.
Yeah, Hear4U. Okay, so you're going to show us something with this paper now.
Yeah, the most common hearing loss in the world is hearing loss in the elderly. You've heard of Presbyterian, Church of the Elders?
Yes.
Presbyopia, your arms aren't long enough to see the page?
Yes.
And presbycusis, hearing loss in the treble pitches.
Okay.
And so if I take this paper and I roll it up much like a horn, and I make it wide at one end, if I speak over there through this paper, you can hear the high pitches. You can hear the high pitches of my speech. But if I talk into the wide end like that, now I've cut off all my high pitches. And that's how elderly people are hearing.
Okay.
They can't hear those high pitches. And so if you take this paper and crumple it while I'm talking to you, you're going to have a hard time hearing what I'm saying.
Sure.
You're going to have a hard time hearing what I'm saying. And that's exactly what Paul was saying about it's subtle. The hearing loss occurs in difficult situations. You can't hear what someone said, and background noise.
Yeah.
like you just did with the paper.
So getting people to go in and get checked is obviously super important, because, you know, sometimes you don't want to admit that we're not hearing as well as
Yeah.
we used to. And so, but again, and just give us that website one last time for everyone.
Sure, yeah, it's Hear4U.ca.
Awesome, great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being
Hey,
here.
hey.
Appreciate it. Nice to meet you both.
Likewise.
Thanks a lot.